Welcome to Lead for Good, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. This is a show where the audience will meet and get to know top nonprofit leaders. Together, we will take a deep dive into nonprofit leadership, endeavoring to uncover and unpack the most important characteristics, traits, strategies, and actions of successful nonprofit leaders. Through this journey together, we desire to help you, the nonprofit leader, grow your knowledge and capabilities to lead for good. We want you to achieve your full potential as leaders in the sector. So, welcome to the conversation. We're glad you joined us today. Without further delay, let's join our host, Chris Looney, as he interviews yet another extraordinary leader who is truly leading for good. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining the show. Today on Lead for Good, we're joined by Erin Rank, President and CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Los Angeles, one of the largest and most innovative Habitat affiliates in the country. Under Erin's leadership, Habitat LA has built and renovated thousands of homes, empowering families and strengthening communities across Southern California. And in this episode, what we're calling Defining Your North Star, Erin shares how completing the Traction program, grounded in the Entrepreneurial Operating System, also known as EOS framework, helped her leadership team define their vision, identify their core strengths, and align around shared goals. And this process gave Habitat LA greater clarity, focus, and momentum to advance its mission. Erin also offers practical exercises in a conversation that we had in a training that we did most recently. So we'll have to do some follow-up around that. But I know our audience is looking forward to some great conversations today. So thanks, Erin, for joining the conversation.
Thanks, Chris. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Great to be back together. I think we first met each other almost 25 years ago.
Yes.
Hard to believe. We keep getting younger and younger and younger. And speaking of those 25 years, before we sort of dive into the topic of EOS, I wanted to learn more about your leadership journey. So if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit more about how you became the leader you are today?
Well, it's interesting because I started as the first employee in my organization, and I had graduated with my master's degree, and was working in youth leadership and was volunteering with Habitat. And it was an all-volunteer organization at the time. And at one point, the board decided that they wanted to hire their first paid staff member. And I think my budget was like $200,000 the first year, and that was to build a house and to keep the lights on, and the rest for my salary. And I was literally working in a donated closet in a church basement in Long Beach, California. And so I had to grow as a leader because I could be independently, driven, but as I added, my team grew and my board grew, I needed to learn how to be the most effective leader. And so I learned on the job, and I had many great mentors along the way. Many of them were my board members. I always looked to recruit board members or invite board members who could teach me something that I didn't know. And so I have really learned from many, many great leaders throughout the years who are on my board or who I'd recruit into my circle to teach me new things. And I've always taken the attitude of being a continuous learner. And so I devour the opportunity to learn new things from people in my circle.
I've always known that about you, but what I didn't know is that we share the reality that both of us have spent time working professionally in the closet of a church.
Oh, really?
Me a few times, because that's where they stick the fundraisers that they hire that they don't have space for.
It must be a thing then. I didn't realize there was a theme here.
It's a thing, and it's apparently blessed because you and I have gone on to do some cool things as a result of the success, those early successes.
Yes.
And we did meet while you were the president and CEO of that organization, maybe a few years after you had been hired as their first pay
Yeah,
its path,
about
which
2 years later.
so cool, so cool. So in all the things that you've done as an executive, I always like to sort of understand what the individual leader's favorite role is, not the title, but what is it about nonprofit leadership that you maybe like the most?
I think the thing that, um, I've never, someone asked me the other day, like, you know, do you get burnt out? And and I said, I've never woken up a day and not wanted to go to work. Like I've never had a day where I didn't want to work
Wow,
on the mission of Habitat.
awesome.
And that's a real gift, to wake up each day and feel like whatever I do today is going to be important to someone, whether it's now or in the future.
Mm.
And so I think I l- I personally would have a hard time working at an organization where the bottom line was selling something to make a profit for others or even for myself. But I would have a hard time without the mission of a nonprofit at the center. And luckily, I found the nonprofit that was perfect for me, in alignment with its mission. So even though, I could go work at another nonprofit, I would judge any opportunity only on how passionate I felt about the mission. And I can't imagine feeling more passionate about anything than Habitat.
That's right. And Habitat has created such a high bar for you in terms of the experience that you would need to have, or the level of fulfillment for the mission.
Right.
So it's a blessing and a curse, because you're going to have to finish out your career with Habitat. That's
I
for
didn't
sure.
think I was going to be here this long, but thank God, he'll
Yeah.
let me know when it's time to go. But I just think that, I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No doubt. And I think one of the fortunate things that you've had in your life, as you mentioned earlier, are great mentors. Interesting that many of them have been board members. Heck, Jimmy Carter himself was probably a mentor to you.
Yes.
You had the chance to engage with him more than most human beings. But I would like to know, who some of those mentors were. You don't have to name them by name. More importantly, I'd love to know what it is that they provided you that you needed to help your leadership.
I think certainly President Carter was an incredible leader to get to know because he was so intelligent and just talking to him, he could remember who the leader of a country, any country, was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and what their policies were and how those policies were impacting that country even today.
Mm.
And so and at the same time, funny, personable, and would walk around a Habitat build site and talk to, volunteers and partner families and anyone he came across and just make them feel like they had lived next door to him forever. And,
Mm.
like he was just one of those
And you
very
were in the Plains,
approachable.
Georgia, right?
Yeah. And so I think his, you know, and determination, he had this determination that was, if the job was to finish the house and you start on Monday morning and finish the house by Friday afternoon in one of our blitz builds, he was all business till his house was done. No photographs, no autographs till my house is done, till all of our houses are done. And he would walk the site in the morning, and if your house was falling behind, he'd say, okay, I'm going to send more people over here and you guys have to come over here. He wanted all the families to finish on time together. And so I think, yeah, I mean, that's a really high bar. I'm not approaching that at all, but I just think, he taught me about humility amongst everybody. I mean, I got that from my grandparents and my parents as well, but I just think, he was definitely a role model. And, I've had, I can think of times when the real estate market was tough, or construction market was tough, or donations were down. And it just seemed like I always had someone in my circle who had been through that before or was going through it and could offer me advice. And so I've just been very fortunate to have just so many mentors along the way.
I love it. You're lucky. Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
yeah, yeah. So also, in the time that you've been a leader, you've obviously coached yourself, you've been coached by others, you've probably developed some sort of philosophy around your leadership, or at least there are certain elements of your leadership that you're particularly proud of and want to promote and share with others and teach others. What is that? Like what's your leadership philosophy, or what's most important to you in your nonprofit leadership practice?
Yeah, I think mission first, like keep focused on the mission, number one.
Yep.
And also to prioritize people, and grow the people within my organization. So I often tell people I started out at Habitat thinking my job was to build a home and to then build another home.
Right.
And I eventually saw that there was community that was impacted by new homes that we would build. So the surrounding community. And I realized my job was then, in my mind, to build community and to bring in people around the neighborhoods where we were building and to develop a broader neighborhood strategy.
Mm.
And then I realized as I grew in my role and I had more people working for me, that my job was really to build people. My job is really to build people in my organization and leaders in those neighborhoods. And as I build them, they will have the transformational impact. They'll build the homes, they'll create the community transformation. And so my role, I think, has evolved over time. And as leaders, I I think, our philosophy should be, of course, to be mission focused and to be as clear in our communication as we can be, especially as your organization grows, because clarity and communication is key for impact. But at the end of the day, we're building people, and the people are impacting our neighborhoods and our work.
I love that. Yeah. I wish every leader would have that mindset to build the people that are around them, and empower them and inspire them, lift them up, So thanks for doing that for so many years and continuing to do it to this day. I want to leave time for our conversation on defining your North Star. So let's jump right into that. So you've led Habitat LA through incredible growth and incredible impact. What initially drew you to explore the EOS Traction framework for your organization?
Well, as Habitat really grew in our scale and complexity, right, from being in the church closet to being in an office, and now having 150 employees and building, over 100, building and renovating over 100 homes every year, I realized that we needed kind of a common operating language for our leadership team and our whole company. And so the EOS model really offers a practical way to turn your vision into a measurable action plan that you can monitor on a weekly basis. And so it wasn't about changing our mission. It was really about just staying true to our mission with some discipline. And so I think with clarity, we were able to drive more confidence, and the EOS system helped us bring really a focus and structure to our passion, to our mission.
Yeah, yeah. And it begs the question for those that are not familiar
Yeah.
with EOS or the Traction program. Can you describe that, what it is, and how they apply it to nonprofit leadership?
Sure. So the book Traction was written by Gino Wickman, and it talks about a philosophy that he uses and has developed for for-profit companies. And it really has had a tremendous impact in the business world. And as you mentioned, it's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's really a framework that drives clarity, alignment, and accountability within your company. And he talks about how companies who follow this model tend to have higher impact more quickly than companies that might have a more dispersed leadership style. And so we really adapted this business tool into a mission-driven context. And in nonprofits, it's more like driving those measurable outcomes and alignment between all your departments. And so while our bottom line isn't necessarily profit, its impact, the EOS model really helps us run our mission-driven organization with kind of the same rigor as a business would for growth or profit.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. So before starting that program, what were the challenges? What were the gaps that you noticed within your team or the structure of the organization that you were really hoping EOS would address?
Yes. Well, we started the traction model, the EOS model during COVID. And so that was a time when, everybody was having to adapt their model to the new realities of,
Right.
construction sites being closed and then being open, and our retail stores being closed and then being open, but with distant, right. Pivot was the word of that year, during COVID. And we realized, I have a senior leadership team, and we realized that we were all running fast, but everything about our model was having to adapt and change. And so we needed to be in, pretty consistent communication with each other in this model. So we didn't have a facilitator. You can get a facilitator who's well-versed in the model, but we all committed to reading the book, listening to the audio book, and I would develop exercises from the book that we would do in kind of weekly pieces, or sometimes it would be a couple weeks in between each meeting. And it really helped us then go, as we went through these exercises, to define our North Star, and to kind of, we were an organization that was saying yes to almost everything. Like, well, yeah, we'll figure out a way to do it, right? It allowed us and permitted us to say no to things that we could set aside, actually allowing us to have a deeper impact on those places where we were unique from other organizations.
Okay. Yeah, and that brings me to that question about as you're identifying your North Star and going through that process, I imagine you kind of were able to identify core competencies and areas of excellence. And what were those things? What were there surprises or insights that shifted how you viewed the organization?
Yeah, I think one of the most impactful exercises was for us to sit down and say, what makes Habitat for Humanity of Greater Los Angeles unique from other nonprofits in LA, other housing nonprofits in LA, other Habitat affiliates, and what are we uniquely built to do? And it became clear that, there are things we have in common with other nonprofits or other organizations, that they, even for profit, that they also do. But defining what made us distinctly different, or our model distinctly different from theirs, gave us a list of things to focus on that were our niche, that were our uniques, like our brand, or the way that we build houses, the way that we finance houses, how we scale our model. And that gave us a list of things to focus on, and to let some of the other things fall to the side. So your North Star is really the intersection of what you do best as an organization and what your community needs from you. And so we looked at it like, why does a volunteer with us, and what does our community need from us that they can't get elsewhere?
Interesting. So that's on the volunteer side, but can you just say again, because it's so important, the intersection, restate that, just because.
So your North Star is the intersection between what you do best and what your community needs from you the most.
Super. That is so important. I love hearing that. That's what I needed to hear for sure. And then you can break that down, as you just did a second ago, into categories like volunteers. right? Because
Volunteers, homeowners, donors. Why does a donor select us over another organization?
wow.
What
So
we hear from our donors when they make a gift to us. We
yeah,
like this about your model.
yeah. So thinking about that, volunteers, donors, houses, what can you share an example um, of how the clarity kind of helped you make decisions that really impacted your leadership team or gave you clarity and that North Star?
When when COVID hit, one of the things we lost was the ability to engage volunteers. We couldn't have volunteers on our build site or at the office, and volunteers are a big part of what we do.
Yeah.
So we engaged 6,000 volunteers a year before this, and um, we were still building, and the building was going along because we're using subcontractors. And that was one of the things we realized, like there was a discussion, do we go faster without volunteers? What is the true benefit of our unique model of engaging the whole community in what we do?
Mm-hmm.
And so we came to the realization that, one of the reasons that the Habitat brand is so popular is because people can build with us. They can tangibly see where their volunteer time is going, where their donation is going, meet the family who's going to be living in the home. And that gave us a unique hands-on opportunity to engage as a broad cross-section
Right, right.
of the community in our work. And what we realized is people you'd meet along the way would relay to you, hey, I built with Habitat for Humanity when I was in college, when I was in high school. Something could have happened 30 years ago, right? And they can still tell you where they built and what they did on the job site that day, who they built with, and, a family story. And most of the time we could say yes, and that family's still living in that house.
Right,
I
right.
mean, people just remember their Habitat experience in a very visceral way. And so we're changing lives and bringing community together through our volunteer work. And
Mhm.
that brought clarity around that aspect of our work as an example.
Yeah, it's such a good example. That's great. And I'm glad you stuck with the volunteer model as opposed to the subcontractor model, which obviously changes so much about the organization and the
Yes.
experience. Yeah.
And you've been out there building before.
I have been on a roof nailing nails into a roof with Dustin Hoffman, of all people, believe it or
Yes, I
not.
remember.
One of the very first Hollywood builds. Yeah, I remember it vividly. So, and but that wasn't the most memorable experience. Similarly, drinking water out of a can was a first for me. I mean, before it had only been bottles or jugs, but this
Right.
was bottled water, which was a strange thing. And
Hand
so
wash.
as strange, there's just some strange things that I remember from Habitat builds. I remember also people making the comment, well, if you ever want to be in a home that's going to survive a hurricane or some sort of major catastrophe, it's a Habitat home because by golly, they have twice as many nails in those.
Volunteers are very committed to, making sure that they get all the nails in
That's right.
every
And it's
place.
built with great care and love. So yeah. Anyway, I have so many memories I can't even, you shouldn't get me started. So we better move on. We'll never get the podcast interview done. But in terms of the EOS sort of system, I know it emphasizes accountability, measurable goals, effective meetings, these things that are really important. So what are the like specific tools or principles from Traction that made the biggest difference, these operating things that made the biggest difference for you?
I think there's something they talk in the book about level 10 meetings, which is having a consistent, effective feedback strategy where we have certain metrics that we want to make sure we measure. I mean, that the thought is if you are, you know, stranded on a desert island and you only knew three things about your company, if you could only get three numbers about your company, or you knew three metrics about your company to determine how it was doing in your absence, what would be the things that you'd need to know, right?
Yeah.
So it's developing, not a 36-page strategic plan, but sort of a one-sheet strategic plan that gives you the three most important things you're going to focus on, and to develop very structured meetings where you start each meeting in the same way and you monitor. Everybody has quarterly goals to reach their annual goals, to reach their 3-year goals and their 10-year goals. And every week we meet and we talk about, where we are on our rocks, which are our to-dos for each quarter, and how we're doing on our metrics. So I think our meetings used to, like, you can fill your calendar with a lot of meetings, especially nonprofits. We're famous for that. And now we fill the scoreboard. And so we have that to start the meeting with very specific health metrics. And then we save time for something called the issues list. This is another one of my favorite parts of the traction model, the issues list. So what are those things that your organization revisits and revisits, and it's a pain point, and
Right.
you never quite get it right, and you kind of keep hearing about it throughout the years. And
Right.
so what are those things, and how do you solve them once and for all? How do you have the tough conversations between people, between departments, and everybody come to an agreement on how you're going to solve that once and for all, so you don't have to hear about it or talk about it again? That the issues list is one of my favorite
I love
things
it.
in the traction
Yeah,
model.
yeah, that seems so important. And the more you talk, the more excited I am to pick up the book, Traction, and read it cover to cover, or listen to it as you also made the suggestion to do.
And I don't, I don't have any alignment with the company. We
No,
did it in a very grassroots way, but I highly recommend it.
yeah, and I think for a lot of leaders, a challenge is not to have some organizing system that allows everybody to be on the same page and to identify the things that are most important, the things that need to be prioritized, eliminate the things that are um, not necessarily unimportant, but just not sort of on brand or on mission. And so I think the fact
Yeah,
that you landed in something that you could use with your team and that has given you a lot of strength and something you haven't had to change out, the next year because it didn't work, right? I mean, I know
right, right.
probably a lot of
It
leaders,
wasn't a fad or something that came and went.
right, or just didn't work because it wasn't either flexible enough, it was too rigid. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I love the fact that you found something, it worked, and you've stuck with it, and it continues
still
to,
using it.
yeah.
Yep, every week.
But there must have been a cultural challenge, though, right? To bring in something new. Everybody probably felt super busy. And then here you are saying, now it's time to do one more thing, right? As helpful as it probably was at the time, it might have sounded like a lot. So were there cultural challenges to institute?
Sure. We had to go through, so as we went through it as a senior leadership team, then each of the leaders had to go through it with their team, because you have to bring the company on board with the vision and the new model.
Good.
And we equipped them with the same tools to be able to do the same exercises with their team. And, we really saw it as more um, empowering the team and not controlling them so much, and getting feedback from the team, and kind of celebrating those quick wins so that the team could understand. And if you had asked, like prior to Traction, if you had asked 10 of my directors or managers to explain to you what Habitat does or what we're going to do next year, you would have gotten 10 different answers, right?
Right.
Now you're bringing this alignment in, so everybody talks from the same playbook. And it didn't add bureaucracy, it really added clarity. And that clarity became contagious, because then you have everybody saying the same thing, even your newest employee to your longest term employee.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sure there was resistance, if there was any, with the idea that this is just going to add more bureaucracy, more layers of work, more middle
Yeah.
managers of a process, right? And it actually created efficiencies, clarity, all of the things that are so important. In terms of that efficiency and clarity, what elements do you think were most significantly impacted in a positive way? Was it communication? Was it sort of mission impact? What areas do you feel were the most positively influenced because of the decision to use Traction?
Yeah, no, I think it really moved us from kind of good intentions to excellent execution, right? So it really people were relieved that there was things that were being taken off their plates, and that they were given a clear focus on what we would be working on, and that led to tangible outcomes, right? More homes built, more people getting loans, stronger funding partnerships, and the biggest one is the ability to respond more quickly when a crisis hit. And our crisis was the Los Angeles wildfires this year. And having the clarity of the 3 or 4 areas that Habitat has as our niche and has as our wheelhouse helped us to be able to define exactly how we would respond to the wildfires. And we were being asked to do dozens of things in response to the fires. And we knew that maybe we could give those things short-term or a minority of our attention. And we were honest with our partners on that. Like in the beginning, everybody wanted us to do rental assistance. And then the thing was, can you buy trailers and put them on their home sites? Can you build ADUs so they can live there temporarily? And what we knew and what we stayed with was that the funding we're raising is going to help people rebuild their primary home. And by not getting pulled in different directions up front, is going to help us for the long run over the next 3 to 5 years to be able to help people get in their home more quickly. Mm-hmm. And it's hard at first because everybody wants to do something immediately.
Sure.
We knew if we spent all of our money on, rental vouchers and things like that, we would not have enough money to help people rebuild. Yeah. And that's our unique. We are one of the only nonprofit organizations that's offering people an affordable way to rebuild their home when their insurance or other payouts don't amount to enough to rebuild.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. So it does sound like the Traction process helped you strike a balance between the vision you wanted and the capacity to execute, which I think is a tension that often is very difficult. And that example really drives that home. And I don't know if I've necessarily made the connection though between how Traction helped you kind of define that North Star in terms of not chasing after the more immediate need, let's say, that seemed to always exist versus the longer term need that was that. I mean, like, what was it in that process that helped you identify that it was something that allowed you to identify the core competency, or something that helped you identify what your priorities should be?
I think it took our vision and funneled it into a direction and a rhythm that we could realize the greatest traction, the greatest impact. And so it really helped us turn those big dreams into daily habits. And so everything that we executed on each day, each week, each month was driving towards our North Star. And the whole company was now driving in the same direction. Yeah. How did we define our North Star? It was going back to those things that were our niche and were our uniques. And what are the 3, here's the question, what are the 3 to 5 things that make your organization uncopyable? Mm-hmm. What makes you different from everyone else in the field? And who do you serve and what do you deliver to those that you serve? And so that's really how you define your North Star. And it's not just a vision statement or words on a paper. It's really the filter for every decision that you are going to make as an organization.
And those questions that you were just asking, are those the exercises, or are those questions part of the exercises that you
Yes.
offer, to your own staff and would suggest for leaders who want to really participate in this? Like, tell me a little bit about the exercises, I guess, that you would want leaders who want to follow Traction to use to help them understand the kinds of things that you became aware of.
Yeah. Well, the book does a great job of walking you through it. And I think there's supplements that you can also use, like workbooks that you could use as a team. But if you were going to just say have a retreat and kind of start introducing the concept of Traction or North Star, those would be my questions. Like actually one of the questions that I loved most, and we did this at our very first meeting, was think of all the people in our orbit, in our organization. Who in your mind is the embodiment of what Habitat for Humanity Greater Los Angeles is? Who on your team? What volunteers? Like, make a list of the people who you think really embody Habitat. And so people did that. And then the question was, what about them makes them the embodiment of Habitat? Right? And that list was so enlightening. It gave us the list of what our values are.
Wow.
And what our culture is as an organization. And then from that, we were able to go into the conversation of like, what really makes, those are my favorite two questions. What's our unique? Like, what makes us uncopyable? What makes us different than everyone else? What are we best at? And what makes us different from everybody else who's doing that?
I love that. Yeah. I used to talk to clients about what makes you the first of some kind, the first to do something, what makes you unique to this day, what makes you
similar, right? As leaders.
The best, like what are you the best at? Could be a leader of the organization, right? And then where are you the only organization that does something? So this FUBO, FUBO, right? Just it does the same thing. It helps you really clarify some of the distinctives for your organization. And I always did it in the context of writing your case for support, because you're trying to explain to someone why you're so awesome. And how do you do that but by differentiating yourself from the sea of sameness? So really, I love that exercise. I mean, for a leader to think about the embodiment, individuals who are the embodiment of their organization and the reasons why, it must just so clearly articulate the values, as you said, and what makes the organization special or attractive to like kinds of people, because you want more of those, right?
Yes.
That's fantastic. So the idea to look toward the book for those exercises is completely beneficial. And I love the idea of this sort of retreat to introduce the concept. I mean, if you're a nonprofit leader listening today and wanted to begin exploring EOS or Traction, I imagine some sort of retreat has to be a part of the process. But what would be some of your recommended first steps for leaders out there who want to learn more?
Yes, I would say first of all, the leader should pick up the book or the audio book, listen to it, read it. And if it moves you, like when I heard it, it moved me. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Like this type of clarity. This is what my organization needs right now. If you feel that passion over implementing it well, I think you could lead the initiative within your organization, or alternately, if you decide that it's maybe overwhelming, or that you want to be more of a participant than a leader of the process, I would look into the EOS implementer program, where you could get a certified, trained EOS implementer to help you kind of walk your organization through the process. And as with everything, there has to be a commitment to keep carrying it out. And I think, try, like, we didn't do everything off the bat. There was some exercises that we said, okay, that piece can wait till later, right? One of them was, for example, like doing is everybody in the right seat on the bus exercise. That sort of came out naturally over time. But starting to practice the level 10 meetings and the rocks, the 10-year plan and the 3-year plan, just getting a vision on those and communicating it to the staff and to the board and socializing that, I think, was very impactful. So you don't have to do everything yourself, and you don't have to do everything overnight either. I would, start by reading the book, and then think about which tool and which question you think will have the greatest impact on your team. There's also an online tool. So this might be a good first step too. So it's a free online tool. You can go in and if you just create an account on the EOS Traction website, you email the survey out to your leaders and ask them how we're doing as an organization in all of these areas. And that's your baseline. It's not usually going to be a pretty number when you start, no matter how wonderful you and your organization are.
Right.
It's humbling. But you say, okay, well, that's where we're starting, and we're going to try and grow in these areas. And it gives you very specific tools. Do this, download this worksheet and do this, or have this conversation, or watch this video, and then kind of you can play the video with your staff. There's a lot of great tools that are free, and that's what I really love about the model, is that Gino Wickman has created a model that's so accessible to everyone, including nonprofits, that you don't need to pay someone a high amount to walk you through. Where I felt the least confident, I would play one of the videos, right? And then that would lead into, and the videos are done by these EOS implementers, and you can watch through them and pick the ones you think will have the greatest impact. And then you kind of go through the exercise as a team and talk through it.
How
So
long how long did it take for you and the organization to feel like you had arrived after beginning the process? You felt like, okay, we're now actually implementing what we're supposed to. We've done the pre-work, and now here we are. We've arrived with our North Star.
it was about 6 months, meeting specifically to walk through the process 2 to 3 times a month.
Okay. And the level of work to maintain or to keep up, is that significant, or is it sort of like you've done the exercise and now it's more maintenance mode and you revisit, but what is the ongoing? Because it's been 3, 4, 5 years now, right? So
Yes, I think the ongoing impact is fewer, more impactful meetings. So I think it's probably saved us hundreds of hours over the time, right?
hey, pays for itself in that way.
Yeah,
You're spending a lot of time wasting time, trying to figure
you
out
can.
how you should be behaving. So that's wonderful to hear. I mean, I just
Yes,
want
if you feel like you're having meetings where the meetings start and end, and then there's a disconnect between that meeting and the next meeting you have as a group, like there's no through line of action that's happening as a result of those meetings, then this would be something that would help you definitely get focused and save time.
yeah, awesome. And I love the introduction that we've had to Traction and this EOS system. So thank you for that. Before we leave, one final question. I'd love to seek your advice that you would give to leaders who want to build stronger, more aligned teams, but feel overwhelmed even where to start. What's your advice and guidance?
I would say just stay small, start off small, but start. Um, Stay consistent, work towards clarity in the way that you communicate with your team, not perfection. None of us are perfect. And I would say, you know, leadership alignment is one of the best investments you can make. And it also goes back to what I was saying at the start, which is we're building people. Like in the end, we're building people. And if you build a mission aligned team, you know, they will then create more mission aligned teams in their lifetime, you know, whether they're on a board of directors or, you know, doing volunteer work or working with another organization after yours. You know, this is a tool that folks will carry forward and you'll be having that greater impact. So I'd say start small, and it's not really, you know, it's not really about adding more work. It's about adding more meaning to your work because you find what your North Star is. And once your team finds clarity, then other things, everything else starts to flow and really fall into place.
Love that. So it's interesting because it seems as though North Star could be said as alignment, right? It's the North Star is alignment for the mission of the organization, alignment for the direction of the organization, alignment for your leadership team, and then alignment for the broader organization. But just
Yes.
it's not one North Star per se, like we're going to the moon, you know, and then everything goes from there. But it's sort of like a variety of different alignments that help you move the same direction together, no?
Yes. And as we've added new people to our senior leadership team, it's been much easier to onboard them and bring them up to speed with the rest of the company. That's another benefit.
Hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, like how lost many people in an organization must feel when they come in to an organization where it's easy to know what they do, but it's hard to know how it's done and culturally and how they fit and their role is. So how brilliant to have this kind of system that allows them to better know how to fit in and what to do and the direction.
And after time, it feels less like you're doing a system and more like it's just a higher, better way to operate, right? It becomes natural.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Erin, thank you so much for helping us tackle this important area of nonprofit leadership. I appreciate you. You are such a leader for good, and we're so grateful that you're willing to share some of this wisdom with.
We can't end without me just telling you how much your friendship and leadership has meant to me over the years as I've grown as a nonprofit leader. When we first met, you taught me a lot about relationship development, fundraising, having that vision and a goal in mind when you're out, you know, and making and setting the bar high on the wall. Like that's what a capital campaign is all about, right? It's like setting the bar high on the wall, developing a vision that other people can buy into and get excited about. And that's a tool that I've used throughout the years. And so I want to thank you for everything that you fed into me as a leader yourself. And I can definitely say that Habitat Greater LA's growth trajectory was, you know, your involvement with us was rocket fuel for us to grow over the years. So I really want to thank you for that.
You bet. I mean, it was my honor, and I will forever remember our early meetings. You know which ones I'm talking about.
Yes.
I especially remember our times with volunteers like Alan Hendershot and just having great times. And so it's been a
But, you
great.
know, sharpening the saw, right? He was an amazing leader, and we were young, and he was, you know, ex-military and was a tremendous executive, and he helped both of us sharpen as leaders, and that's why we still remember those days.
That's why I remember him, because I don't know if there was a single person who motivated me to do a better job for you and for the organization than him.
Right.
Because he insisted on excellence, and he wasn't just telling me what to do. He was rolling up his sleeves and saying, I bet I can do more than you. And I said, I bet I can do more than you. And it was just a great leadership example to follow.
But doesn't that say a lot about you that you didn't shrink back from the challenge, right?
Oh, right. How could you?
Yes.
How could you? It was like getting my sport for the day. My competition juice is flowing. So
Absolutely.
it was great. But thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Your friendship has meant a great deal to me as well.
Likewise.
So, well, thank you again, everybody. If you've enjoyed this show, make sure you like and subscribe. We have 2 other podcasts, Mastering Fundraising and The Nonprofit Edge. All of these shows interview extraordinary leaders and really dig into the heart of the matter and explore, various aspects of nonprofit leadership that are important to the audience. So do join us again. But in the meantime, my constant reminder is for everyone out there to always lead for good. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for this most recent episode of Lead for Good. Our passion is helping nonprofit leaders reach their full potential as leaders, and we sincerely hope this episode has been edifying for you. Please subscribe to this podcast to not miss any of our Lead for Good conversations. We welcome your feedback, suggestions, and comments via email at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Lead for Good is a production of Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership. Please visit us on the web at www.fulcrumleader.com. Until next time, we wish you all the best and encourage you to always lead for good.